Captain Planet.
Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take pollution down to zero. He's our powers magnified, and he's fighting on the planet's side. Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take pollution down to zero. Gonna help him put us under. Bad guys who like to loot and plunder.
You pay for this, Captain Planet. We're the Planeteers. You can be one too. 'Cause saving our planet is the thing to do.
So this is a cartoon that Miss Long and I watched when we were younger. So this section is about what are the problems that we need to solve. There is no Captain Planet superhero, but you can be a planeteer.
So, one of our first problems is global warming. Global warming is the unnatural warming of the Earth. The cause of this is the excess greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, CO2, and methane, CH4, in the atmosphere, and that traps in the heat. And that leads to the abnormal increase in the Earth's atmosphere. Now, carbon dioxide, CO2, comes from the burning of fossil fuels that was mentioned before in the unit, and CH4 actually comes from landfills and from cows.
So when we look at this problem of global warming, there are three main things that we need to understand. The first is that burning fossil fuels releases CO2. So even though there's a lot of debate about is global warming real, is it a problem that we really need to be concerned with, you can't debate this. This is a fact. When you burn a fossil fuel, you release CO2. So that's fact number one. The other fact is that these greenhouse gases trap heat. Think about when you're cold and you put on a blanket or a jacket or a hat. They're not giving heat, they're just trapping your body's heat to make you warmer. Now, greenhouse gases are good because they make the Earth a hospitable place. This is why we can live on Earth, is because we have some greenhouse gases. But too many greenhouse gases trap too much heat. So when we put these two facts together, burning fossil fuels releases CO2, CO2 can trap heat. This is how there's nothing to argue about. Yes, the Earth is changing because of humans. Humans are really the only ones that burn fossil fuels. So that's the cause.
And the effect of it, like Ms. Beatsy said, is that the Earth is getting warmer. So it's like Earth has a little fever, okay? And so what's happening is that there's going to be an increase in temperature, 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, which leads to weather patterns changing worldwide. Polar ice caps may begin to melt, flooding of coastal cities could occur, and contamination of drinking water with salt water could occur.
So what you'll notice throughout this section of notes is that there's a cause and there's an effect. And so what our goal is to figure out how can we reduce the causes, so how can there be less greenhouse gases, and how can we ameliorate or fix the actual effect. So what sort of things do we need to do because of this? So the cause of global warming is CO2 and CH4 and the fact that they're trapping heat, and that's global warming. A better way to describe it really would be global weather changes, because we're not exactly sure. When it warms up in one part of the Earth, sometimes it cools down in the other part. So when people say, oh, it's really cold, that means global warming isn't true. No, the pattern won't happen exactly the same everywhere on Earth at that moment. The next problem is ozone depletion.
And ozone depletion actually has nothing to do with global warming.
The cause is different and the effect is different.
So the cause is from CFCs, those are chlorofluorocarbons. That's a compound that they used to use in refrigerators and in aerosol cans, and that would actually destroy the protective ozone layer in the atmosphere.
So ozone is supposed to block UV radiation. So we kind of want to add that in. Ozone should block UV rays. Now Now keep in mind what that means. From the sun is coming lots of different energy. Remember, the sun is really a ball of gas that is on fire or undergoing a chemical reaction. And so coming from the sun is all of this energy. And some of that energy is infrared or heat energy, but not all of it is. UV radiation is not the same as heat. So we are supposed to have ozone up here, which is protecting us from UV rays, except these chlorofluorocarbons will hit the ozone, breaking the ozone up and causing a thinning or a hole in the ozone layer. What we want you to pay attention to is this word, ozone depletion. Think about the last problem was global warming, which is an increase in temperature. Ozone depletion is a loss of ozone, and therefore an increase in UV rays that reach the Earth. So we're trying to understand that the cause is very different as well.
Now, the effect of ozone depletion is that this harmful UV radiation from the sun can reach the Earth, and that can cause increased numbers of sunburns, skin cancers, cataracts, which can lead to blindness, and crop damage.
So very different effects than global warming. Global warming is just increasing the temperature of the Earth, and that changes the weather. A decrease in the ozone depletion, actually allows UV rays in, and those UV rays mutate your DNA. UV rays are what we call mutagenic agents. They can cause mutations. So global warming doesn't affect your body, except maybe to make you a little warmer. But ozone depletion is where this energy from the sun, this is why you get sunburns, is because of the UV radiation. Even though a sunburn feels hot, it's because you're getting both types of energy from the sun that you feel hot and get sunburn. So what we're focusing on with ozone depletion is that it's not that you're getting hotter, it's that more of those really dangerous rays. And this is why when people go to a tanning bed, it's not hot in the tanning bed, because all that you're getting when the tanning bed is the UV rays.
The next problem is acid rain. And acid rain is caused by emissions like sulfur and nitrous oxide from cars and factories. And that reacts with oxygen and water in the air.
So let's pay attention to this word acid. If you remember, an acid is where the pH is below 7. Rain should be 7, which is neutral. But when these chemicals, sulfur oxide and nitrous oxide, get into the air, they undergo a chemical reaction and they become an acid. One thing to keep in mind is you can abbreviate nitrous oxide NOx and sulfur oxide SOX. And you can say that acid rain knocks your socks off. So a funny little saying to help you remember, the cause of acid rain is nitrous oxide and sulfur oxide. So far we have 3 main chemicals, or groups of chemicals, greenhouse gases, chlorofluorocarbons, and these oxides, that are all causing problems on Earth. They were all originally developed to solve problems, to have a refrigerator, to drive a car, to be able to power a house, and yet they're having these really bad effects in our and around our planet. So for acid rain, we see how it gets started, but the effect.
So the effect is that it's going to lower the pH of aquatic ecosystems. It's going to make the soil less fertile. It's going to harm plant life, and it can actually harm human property as well.
This part about damaging aquatic ecosystems is one of the most difficult because if you're an animal like a bird, you can fly somewhere else where there might not have been acid rain. Or maybe it just lands a little bit on your tree. If you live in an aquatic ecosystem, all of that acid rain will eventually run into the river, the pond, the lake, the stream. So aquatic ecosystems are the ones that are damaged the most.
The next page is water quality. Causes that affect water quality would be sediments, oil, fertilizers from land. So so from runoff, and also illegal dumping. And this is going to cause disease for those habitats and habitat destruction.
We're going to talk about habitat destruction next because it is actually the biggest problem for conserving Earth. Is this idea that so many things that we do actually change the habitats of other organisms. Here we are living in our house, not really affected by the air quality or the water quality, but other organisms really are. Keep in mind, anything that is on land, when it rains, the rain will run off and will end up in aquatic ecosystems as well. So most people think that water quality, water pollution, is because people dumped things, and that is true. But you polluting in land, even washing your car in your driveway, can put chemicals into water that go into rivers and lakes and streams.
So the loss of biodiversity and habitat destruction are caused by deforestation, where you're cutting down forests for wood and for farming, draining and filling of wetlands, bioaccumulation, which means that the greatest accumulation of a toxin is going to be found in your lower organisms in the food chain.
So let's just kind of pause there because these are two really new ideas. Deforestation and draining and filling wetlands is something you might be a little bit familiar with. But these two, bioaccumulation and biomagnification, are definitely going to be new. What we're talking about is the accumulation of toxins. So let's add that word in there. So let's pretend that you have a bunch of fire ants in your yard, and you decide that you're going to spray some bug spray so that there's no more fire ants in your yard. And so you spray the bug spray. The bug spray is not just getting on the fire ants. The bug spray is going to get on the grass. The bug spray is going to get on the fire ants. The bug spray might get on the roly-polies. It might get on the earthworms. It gets in the soil. It might get on some berries. And so bioaccumulation is where they collect individually.
The next one that kind of follows along with that is biomagnification, and this is where the toxin is magnified the greatest in the higher organisms in the food chain, so in our top consumers.
And so bioaccumulation can happen to any organism. If there is something sprayed, it's going to get on every organism there. Biomagnification magnifies or increases as it goes up the food chain. So remember, 10% of energy is transferred, but 100% of toxins are. And so when we spray something, it will get on the producers, but then when the primary consumers or herbivores eat the producers, they accumulated their own, but then when they ate, they got more toxins and more toxins and more toxins and more toxins. And that's called biomagnification, and it magnifies up the food chain. And the main example of this is why a book called Silent Spring was written, about not hearing the birds chirping in the springtime. And this was actually because we used to spray a chemical called DDT, and maybe want you to circle this one. DDT was a chemical that we were using to kill pests or bugs. And they tested it on all sorts of animals, and it had very little effect. But what they didn't think about is that as organisms ate, they got a lot more. It actually ended up harming the shells of the eggs, and that's why the bald eagle was endangered for so long.
So endangerment and extinction mean that the endangered species are at risk of becoming extinct, and extinction means that you lose that species.
So we do need to know that endangerment and extinction really relates back to habitat loss. This word biodiversity means different types of life. And so we're trying to hold on to this idea that across Earth, we need to be careful about the solutions we use because they can be harmful to other organisms.